Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Heart of New York show. I have a very special guest here today, Dr. Raj. He was once the guest some time ago, and it's imperative and important in this time, in this day and age, that we have him back. I'm going to remind you of a few things about this wonderful man. Dr. Raj, he's a triple board certified in adult psychiatry, integrated medicine, and addictive medicine, and has completed his training in adult psychoanalysis. Dr. Raj was the chairman of Ocean County Opioid Task Force in New Jersey from 2013 to 2016, dedicated to reducing the impact of addiction in youth, and in an area where opioid addiction is right now at an all-time high. Dr. Raj's vast experience in psychology and addiction medicine has given him the sound scientific and interpersonal framework for helping people to transcend their addictive behaviors. As a strong believer in Eastern approaches and natural medicine, also, he acquired additional training in those approaches, including an additional 2-year fellowship at the Arizona Center for Integrated Medicine with one of the most foremost integrated medicine physicians, Dr. Andrew Veal. Dr. Raj also advanced training in psychoanalysis and is a human behavior expert, and I emphasize expert. Welcome, brother.
Thank you so much for having me.
So good to have you. I mean, especially at this time, what the world's going through, what we're going through here, and what people need to hear to get better from you.
These are traumatic times.
Traumatic times. What do you think you can say to people out there that have gone through devastation? Okay, that have addictive behaviors, that have psychological troubles, whatever the case may be, that are need repair. How do you deal with that now?
I think the first thing to really keep in mind and really take in is that no matter what our circumstances are, we can find a way to stabilize our lives, to better our lives, and to find more happiness. Now, that's that's variable, obviously. Some people have, we talk about little T trauma and big T trauma. I'll jump right in. If you were beat from ages 13 to 18, 19 by your alcoholic father, I have a patient who would hide in the woods so he wouldn't have to walk in through the garage, because if he was seen, he was going to get a beating. That doesn't just, kind of put you back a little bit. It shatters you. It shatters you, As a 60-year-old man, he in the office, he sits like a little kid, because that part of him is still there, and that's the part that needs healing. So, trauma is so present in our society today. And again, it doesn't have to be overt, but most trauma is very covert. A parent, is lying on the bed, let's say they have arthritis, and a child jumps on the bed, and basically, the parent says, "Oh, what are you doing?" But you do that day in, day out, and you'll see what happens to the child, right? So I don't even think we realize most often as trauma and when trauma is happening, but everyday trauma is happening.
And this is not only with individuals, but we're talking about with family, we're talking about in the business environment. We're having trauma everywhere.
In fact, there's an entire concept called intergenerational transmission of trauma. Intergenerational transmission of trauma. Because what we do, what that is that the family member who's been traumatized repeats the event with their partner and passes it on to the offspring, I wasn't good enough, and so therefore now it's your turn. In fact, we even have a name for it. We call it the errand. The errand you get from your family. They're unresolved errands of life, So these things are very deep. And what I mean by that is, listen, the reality is the environment has a tremendous impact on who we become, what we believe, and what we don't believe. Therefore, if the parents, the adults in the home are conflicted, have drug use, alcohol use, domestic abuse, verbal abuse, all of these things become that child's norm, right? So they grow up thinking this is the way it's supposed to be. And then they go and repeat this in their relationships. Why? Because that's the blueprint they have. It's not actually all that difficult to go to, right? That's the blueprint they have. And in fact, they go now, and this is unconscious, they go and recreate the exact same situation they said that they didn't want. Right?
Why is that? They feel comfortable doing it, or that's the only thing they know?
That's what they know.
That's what they know.
Right. You can't see past what you don't understand.
So how can someone then recognize it and come to you for help?
I think the thing here, the main thing is there has to be a theme, right? You start developing, like, what's the theme? I was in 3 relationships and I thought each one was the one. That's not possible, right? And none of them worked out. How could that be? What's going on here, right? So first of all, you have to recognize that there's a theme. Something's not working. I'm having trouble with somebody at work. I'm having trouble with my partner or my spouse at home. I'm having trouble with my kids. What's going on here? That's the bottom line question. You have to figure it out. There's no pill that's going to fix it. There is no amount of money that's going to fix it. Money's interesting. It's about up to $70,000. It's more than interesting, but up to about $70,000 a year, people will say, yes, my happiness is more. Yes, I'm more happy. Yes, I'm more happy. At about $70,000, it flattens out. I'm like, why? Around that number, people basically kind of have their basic needs met. They're not worried about electric bills and, the gas, even though today, with the gas prices. But and then you get to deal with really what's going on inside of you. See, it's easy to say, you know what? I have this unhappiness because I don't have enough money. I don't have a car. I don't have money for this. I don't have money for that. And of course, those things are painful, of course. But once those things are met, what one finds is that there are other sources of pain from our own past individual lives.
How do you deal with the opioids? What's going on there?
That's a big question.
That's
a very big question. How do we deal with opioids? Well, I guess very carefully and somewhat, what's the word? Aggressively, right? You want to be aggressive in terms of stabilizing the patient. It used to be, people used to think that, okay, you got them, we're going to give you the medication, I'll get to that in a minute, but now, unless you go to therapy or a program, you can't have the medicine. Mistake. That's a mistake, right? Do we tell the person who has chest pain coming into the emergency room, excuse me, sir, or excuse me, ma'am, but we got to talk about your cholesterol level. I know you're having chest pain, but we'll get to that. No, not at all, right? We immediately stabilize the patient, and then we don't, in fact, even talk about cholesterol in the emergency rooms. Right? We send them to the cardiologist and the primary care docs. They handle that. With addiction, it's no different. You must stabilize the person first. Otherwise, so what do I mean by that? Get them to stop using the heroin. Get them to stop, snorting the pills. Get them to stop, drinking a fifth of vodka daily. You got to get a handle on those aspects first, and then you can say, hey, we got to really talk about what's going on here. Because the real key question is, how did I get here? 1/3 of patients who have anxiety disorders have substance abuse disorders, right? Over half of patients who have a mood disorder have some type of a substance use disorder, right? So it's absolutely critical. First stabilize, then yes, of course, you got to get to the psychology, the therapy, spirituality, meaning, purpose, etc., etc.
The reason why I find this so fascinating for myself, because I really believe that there's so many people out there that are hungry for this, that need this, that aren't even aware that help like this is available. Because you don't get to that point, as far as my thinking is, unless you hit a rock bottom. And some people hit a rock bottom, some people top out, Not too many top out, but some of them realizing that, hey, there's something wrong here. But they hit a rock bottom. So they got to reach out and say, man, what do I got to do? And then that's when the healing starts, right?
Right. Well, what is that rock bottom, right? Really, what we're saying is when there is enough pain, right? When does the dog get up off the nail on the floor? When it hurts enough, right? That's when the animal moves. When do we move? When it hurts enough. Then we say, you know what, I got to do something. However, I can update the rock bottom idea, which is the elevator keeps going down, but you can get out at any floor. You don't have to lose everything before you get your life back. You can stop anywhere and then go from there.
There you have it. You got to get off that elevator before it hits the bottom. And some people go to the bottom and then they don't realize that there's a trap door and they'll go even further. But the key here is, what do you need to do? Okay, and I'm talking from personal experience myself, and this is why I get along with this man so well, is because I have been now myself sober for 34 years. And if I haven't come to the conclusion that I need help and I got to do something about it, man, I wouldn't be here today.
It's not going to happen.
Not going to happen.
It's not going to happen. You're in denial. We'll say, nope, I don't need that. That's your problem. That's not my problem.
That's right. And now in today's age, we have so many things that are combating everybody. Now, there's things that become legal that's another discussion on. But the alcohol, the opioids that are coming through, and now people are buying them as easily as they can get aspirin. And it's like, I see how many people committed suicide just last year.
In the United States, the last 2 years in particular, we've had a decrease in the life expectancy in the country. It's in fact, it's not heard of in a first developed nation. Doesn't happen. We're the only developed nation that we've had a decrease in the life expectancy. 3 reasons. Number 1, overdoses. 2013 you were talking to, I was basically chair of that opioid task force. We had about 20,000 deaths, right? This year we had over 100,000 from overdoses, number 1. Number 2, suicides are up, more than ever before. Number 3, all death caused by alcohol-related causes. So we call these the deaths of despair. The deaths of despair. And these 3 reasons are leading the major cause of the decrease in life expectancy in the United States.
It's really, it's sad, and most importantly, it's increasing as time goes on. You know, been in your office, Angela and I, we've been in your office, we see things around. Some of the things that you deal in, I think one is nutrition.
Yeah.
What can you say about that?
You know, I was speaking to a traditional Chinese medicine doc a few weeks ago, and he made a very interesting comment, which I really liked. And, you know, I don't really use the word enlightenment. You know, it's just such a big word, you know, and I'm certainly a work in progress. But he used that word, and it was really interesting. And what he said was, you know, enlightenment is not just of the mind. It is of the body and of the spirit. So going back to nutrition, right? Of course, it's very important, right, what we're putting inside our body, right? Not just anesthetizing ourselves. We use more opioids in the United States than any country in the world, right? We are the largest consumers of alcohol and cannabis than any country in the world.
Wow.
Right? And when you take the total population into account, what does that mean? Right? We are a self-anesthetizing society. I'll work 18 hours and then I'll go home and I'll have a couple drinks. And somehow you can rationalize, you know what, I made an extra 6 hours in overtime today. That's a good thing. But really, over the long haul, 10, 20, 30, 40 years, it's not going to be a good thing. The life expectancy is going to go down by 10, 20 years, and your kids are going to be without a mom or a dad, right? In any book, I don't think that looks good, right, or desirable, right? The other aspect is when we're working 18 hours a day, who's raising the children? Something to think about, right? Because this is another problem, right? Basically, kids, you know what, don't remember how big the house was that they were growing up in. Basically, you know what they remember? Was mom around? Was dad around? Or did I come home every day after school and nobody was home and I was a latchkey kid? You know? Did my dad ever call? I know my parents are divorced, but did my dad ever call and even say hi to me? I mean, how often do I hear, I haven't spoken to my father or mother, usually, unfortunately, the dad, I think, in divorced family, you know? So I hear a lot of my patients, basically from single families. So, but what we're really getting at is kids need guidance. Kids need guidance. And they have to have that. Not just guidance, they need presence, right? You can't be present to guide them, right? So you got to stop the drugs, got to stop the alcohol, or at least you got to get it such that kids have you. Last piece that's coming to my mind I'll share is that Columbia did a study, 0 to 2 family dinners per week, 5 to 7 family dinners per week. That's all they told the two groups, right? Either have 0 to 2 or 5 to 7 family dinners per week. And then you look at nicotine use, cannabis use, alcohol, right down, all of the numbers are lower in the 5 to 7 dinners per week.
That's interesting.
Isn't that interesting?
That is so interesting.
Right?
So what do you tell someone who doesn't have a family?
That's a very good question. Because then, on some level, the treatment provider is the part of the family. Because, what are we all really looking for? And I frequently talk about this when I'm training my residents and fellows. Basically, when patients come to us, when people come to us, remember, for all of us, our unmet needs of childhood become our adult wishes. I'll say it again. Our unmet needs of childhood become adult wishes. So the very thing I was just talking about, the need, mom, home with me, presence, I love, she loves me, dad loves me, I have a family. When a child doesn't get enough of that because of all of the life circumstances, what happens? Does that go away, that wish? No. It actually becomes a need, and now you can help fulfill that need as a treatment provider, as a counselor, as a clergyman, right? So on some level, we are stepping in as family. That's what the fellowship is, in AA. George Valiant out of Harvard University, he looked at that for 40 years, right? And the main factor that gets people better in AA is the fellowship. You're not alone.
I can attest to that. And I'll tell you another thing that they say to do is go out and help someone. No matter how you're feeling, what you're going through, the significance of your loss or breakup or whatever the case may be, you just go out and try and help someone and encourage someone. And I have tried it, and my goodness, I'm telling you, it was not just a few times, but most of the time, a cloud lifts, and I start to feel better.
You want to kind of, at least I'll give you an idea why. See, in order to help someone, right, we can't be down rolling on the ground with them, right? That's the difference between empathy and sympathy. What I train the fellows is you want to have empathy. You want to be able to put yourself in the person's shoes. What are they going through? How does this feel? What are their struggles? But actually, you don't want to sympathize. You don't want to get on the floor and say, let me roll around with you on the floor. No, because then you can't help them. So when you're helping somebody, you're automatically in an empathic position. Also, you're not yourself in a victimized position. I can't possibly offer you something if I feel I'm at the end of my rope and I'm willing to give up on life. If I have that courage to say, you know what, I'm going to help you, then I must feel okay enough, right? So it automatically pulls out a different part of our mind, a different, what we call self-state, right? Rather than the victimized, I'm a piece of you-know-what state, I'm a loser and all of this. You know what? Maybe I'm not so bad. I'm working on it. Maybe I can help this person with me. I have actually, Salman Akhtar, wonderful psychiatrist, psychoanalyst, one of my colleagues, he said this about goodness, and it really resonated. And actually, it's Melanie Klein's work, but he's the one who taught it to me. Basically, that in order to be good, you must know you're bad somewhere. if I claim that there's absolutely I'm all good, right? If I'm all good, what am I doing with the parts that are not so good about me? Guess what I'm doing? I'm either denying them or projecting them out onto you, or you, or you, or you. It's not me, it's you. I didn't do that, that's your fault, right? Rather than, did I play a role? Maybe I played a role in that too, right? So each one of us as a human being has to see ourselves as imperfect in this form. This life is far from perfect. It is far from fair, right? Here's the problem that most people, I think, have, is that they think they got to be perfect. And this was the plague I had growing up. I thought absolutely everything can get to this place where, I can become the doctor and this and have that, and everything will just be perfect. It didn't work out that way. And in fact, the day I graduated from medical school, it was the clearest to me that I didn't feel any different. I didn't have a sense of self-worth before that, and it didn't fix that problem for me. And in fact, that was the beginning of understanding that this is an internal problem. This is not an external problem. This is not a problem with the world at large, but a problem in my mind.
And most importantly is he was able to recognize it. How many people go through life a long period of time and all of a sudden then the light goes off and says, oh my God, this is why.
Unfortunately, I think many people, the light doesn't go on at all. But you see, so personality, our personalities, how we see life, how we treat people, that's what we need to look at, which starts with the belief system, and that goes back to how we were raised.
I always like to ask this question because I don't have any doubt whatsoever about what you made to do. Do you remember the specific time you got the calling to become a medical doctor, to go down this road of helping people?
I do, actually. I do. But I think why I had it didn't turn out to be accurate. Again, I had done the medical route mainly to get a sense of self-worth, as I had said, to be enough, and especially, I'm Indian, so doctor, lawyer, engineer, these things are highly valued by our society. But I thought that would do it. But the moment I decided to become a doctor, my uncle used to call my sister doctor. And I would say, why don't you call me doctor? See, immediately I was feeling less than, right? In that scenario. And there was, some, even siblings have kind of some competition. I wasn't aware of this though, But why I chose to do that was rather a competitive move, and an attempt to feel enough rather than a truly, kind of insight-oriented decision. I mean, I was a kid. I was 7 years old, Why don't you call me doctor? All of a sudden, I felt less important, right? And that drove me. I said, you know what? I want to be important too. But all of that was a facade. None of that was accurate. We're all important. Everyone is important. We all have gifts and talents. Everybody has self-worth. Unfortunately, our life's events somehow traumatize us to varying degrees, and we start believing I'm not enough. Keeping up with the Joneses. That kid got a new car in school. Their parents bought a new house. They're on vacation. That kid gets to go to summer camp. I don't. Individuals who spend more than 30 minutes on social media a day, more depression, more anxiety. Why? We have to move away from thinking that it's all biological, right? So again, bringing in the psychology, bringing in spirituality. Carl Jung, who was one of my absolute favorite physicians and analysts, and I have this quote by him I'd like to share. He said, "Be silent and listen. Have you recognized your madness and do you admit it? Have you noticed that all of your foundations are completely mired in madness? Do you not want to recognize your madness and welcome it in a friendly manner?" What he's talking about here is that there are negative thought processes in our mind. There are things that bother us. And instead, what do we tend to do? Be positive. Be positive. Be optimistic. No, don't think negative. Now, again, being optimistic is important. But when we have a negative thought, I don't think we should ignore it. Just ask, why am I having that thought? You wanted to accept everything, so accept madness too. Let the light of your madness shine, and it will suddenly dawn on you. Madness is not to be despised and not to be feared, but instead you should give it life if you want to find pathways forward. Be glad that you can recognize it, for you will thus avoid becoming its victim. So if I don't feel good enough about myself and I want to medicate that, is it better for me to deny that feeling and then say, yeah, hey guys, let's go out. I'll go out to the bar, whatever, right? Or is it better to say, you know what, God, I think there's still a part of me that doesn't feel very good about myself. And I need to really understand where the foundations of that are, where the foundations of those roots are, right?
Oh, I believe most people are too afraid to go and find out what they are.
Yes.
They don't want to deal with it.
That's right. That's
or
right.
they're afraid.
That's right. That's right. And as a society at large, right, I think that has been what's happening. Thomas Insel, he was the director for the NIH for 7 years, you know. They spent $20 billion on research. They fund all the research, you know, mental health and all this. And what he said is he didn't move the needle much, that they didn't really prevent, you know, worse outcomes for mental health as a general overall statement. What does that mean? What does that mean? What it means is it's not all the biology, right? So when you hear treatment-resistant blank, you got to think what happened to this person in their life, you know, because they're not, mild or moderate in severity. They're really severe. Something has happened.
Oh, boy, I tell you, this has been a fascinating, enlightening show. I'm going to go as far as to say I believe you were divinely called to this position, brother. I truly believe that. You're gifted in so many different areas that can only, in my heart, I can say that only came from divine.
Divine. It is divine. Because I'll tell you, what I was sharing earlier, it really threw out that I've had so much self-doubt, you know, growing up, you know, and developing in all my developments. But for some reason, there's always been this one thought. I know I'm very, like, my gift is connecting and communicating with people, taking complex ideas and really just.
No question about it. No
you.
question about
Thank
it.
you.
I hope you got as much out of this as I did, and let me tell you, more is to follow. I want to thank you, Dr. Raj, my good friend that I've gotten to know over the years. He has been a blessing to many, many people, and many, many more to come. Thank you all for watching. We'll see you next time. God bless.